I think that Days of Wine and Roses is inherently going to be the best musical of this season. Welcome back, and today I am reviewing Days of Wine and Roses at Studio 54. And wow, guys, I mean, listen, I'm not gonna make this video too long because I'll just be ranting and rambling. But this musical is the best musical I've seen live that's touched me emotionally since Dear Evan Hansen. And that was like 6 years ago. I know a lot of people don't like Dear Evan Hansen, but I love it. So, a musical hasn't touched me in the emotional way that this has since 2017, which is insane. And that's a good thing, because musicals like that aren't supposed to be, you know, coming around every single season. But this should win Best Musical. But it's a limited engagement, so it might not. But you know what? Someone made a good point on the message boards, and yes, I do check those, that the best musical prestige that equates to box office isn't a thing anymore, so why not give it to this even though it's closed? You know, The Notebook is supposedly the contender for best musical, but that's gonna run because it's The Notebook, you know? Maybe you could give it to Lampika because it is gonna need it, but we'll see what happens there. But this, guys, is beautiful. It's art. This is art. Not just entertainment. Brian Darcy James, Kelly O'Hara, what else can be said? Giving amazing, nuanced, complex, layered performances. There's comedy, there's humor. You love them at certain points, you hate them at certain points. You feel remorse for them, you feel pain for them, you feel all of the rampant of emotions for these two characters, and it's brilliant. This can be a two-person show, but I understand why it's a fuller cast. I mean, it's a very, the ensemble doesn't work extremely hard in this musical. They have very easy things to do, but I do think it's necessary to just give you a bit of context to the world. But I do think you could do this with only two people. I think you could do this like in a small theater with just two people. I mean, you'd have to because the ensemble is necessary for certain parts, but I definitely do think it could work as a two-person musical. I definitely think that this is definitely a lot more score than, well, that's not true. There's a lot of script in it, but it felt like it just felt like a lot of it was the music. The musical numbers seemed to be more prevalent than the book, and not in a negative way. Just that, like, I feel like there was like musical number, little book scene, musical number, and then kind of a moderately long book scene, and then we're back to the musical numbers. In my opinion, the musical numbers are the highlight. All of these songs are amazing. I think the only song that I just don't listen to is Story of the Atlantic Cable, but that's definitely a song that I like to listen to just seeing it visually than listening to it. But Magic Time, I mean, There Go I, Everness, beautiful song. And it was so cool because when they did that song, that's like the one happy-go-lucky song. You know, that's the Sincerely Me of this piece. There's a disco ball that comes out a couple of times, and it just fills up the room, and it's like spectacle, but like in a way you're not expecting. And that's what I like about these smaller musicals, is you don't expect a lot of spectacle and big things to happen, and then when they do, you're like, whoa, like that's crazy. They have a little like pool at the edge of the stage. They have a couple of I think they have the stage lifts up at one point in Everness, which I wasn't expecting, and I thought that was cool, and I was like, how are you guys dancing like on that little platform? But yeah, so if you've listened to the cast recording, pretty much the same thing you're gonna get. Slightly different orchestrations, different lines here and there, and I know that instead of Turley Q, it's letters, I believe, instead. Did not like the way they reorchestrated that. And I personally didn't think Delilah that they got for Broadway had as strong a voice compared to the recording one, but that is what it is. I thought the set was pretty basic, it was pretty minimal, but it worked. You know, this is definitely a Michael Greif musical. It has that kind of, style where it's, small, it's intimate, they have the lights go if you know what I mean. If you do Evan Hansen, the lights go bang, 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 and that's kind of what happens in this show. And it's interesting because you start off with Magic Time, Story of the Atlantic Cable, There Go I, Everness, Salmon and One, all which are very, light and upbeat, and you're having a fun time. I was literally, like, smiling like an idiot. I haven't smiled that big with that much joy, and that's mainly because I was excited to see the songs live, since I 2015, which is incredible. I was like, oh my god, like I was just getting distracted because of how excited I was. And you're like, oh my god, this is such a good time. You know, the music's popping, it's catchy, it's toony. You know, it's beautiful looking. You know, you feel sophisticated in that theater. It's a very nice theater. But then you get into As the Water Loves the Stone, Are You Blue, Under Death, First Breath, 435. More Than Salt Girl, and that's when they get the Lila, and that's when they start becoming drunk. And it's interesting because when you listen to like As the Water Loves the Stone, for example, on your phone, it's and oh, by the way, I have the profile of the album. Kind of wish they used that for the playbill, because this is a very interesting. I mean, it's kind of okay, but I don't know. The marketing hasn't been great. When you listen to As the Water Loves the Stone, it's beautiful. It's very hypnotic. Oh, You Blue is like a beating number, but when you watch it, it's completely different. Like I wanted to punch them. I was like wanting to kick my seat. I was so angry, viscerally angry, and so incredibly sad. Like no piece of theater, I think ever, has done that to me. It's gotten me to that visceral level of anger. Like I don't get that angry. And I was angry at Christian, and I was angry at Joe for the way they treated their child, and the kind of the we're okay now, and then we're back to being drunk. I mean, it was like an emotional roller coaster. You felt like Lila at times, and felt traumatic. It felt heavy. You felt physically, like you felt heavy. You know, you walk out of that theater feeling physically different, feeling mentally different, and you feel uncomfortable. You're like, I don't want to watch this. This is uncomfortable. This is dark. This is dreary. This is so sad and depressing, and that's what I love. I love that kind of stuff, and I know now why this isn't very mainstream, because this is not a musical that a lot of people are gonna like. It's not a happy-go-lucky show. It's very hard, and for some people, they're not gonna want to see this because they remind them too much of real life. This didn't even seem like fiction. This seemed like just a documentary, like real life. And the songs are beautiful, but again, it's kind of like that parade thing where the songs are super catchy, but in context, they're very dark. It made me feel on a level that, you know, so doesn't happen a lot, and it shouldn't happen so often, but when it does, it's like, whoa, wow. So on an emotional level, I was invested, I was hooked. I know some people find the score to be a bit I actually like this over Light in the Piazza. Hot take, I like this score better than Light in the Piazza. I think this is one of the best scores that we have seen since probably Grey Comet? I mean, I guess you could say Band's Visit, but I wasn't a huge fan of all of the numbers in that. But yeah, I think I mean, listen, Hadestown's score was beautiful, so was Kimberly Akimbo's. But the unnatural sounds, you don't hear this kind of sound on Broadway so often. It reminded me a lot of Grey Comet. So I will say this is the best score that I've heard since Grey Comet. And I just cannot give you enough praises. You should go and see this, but again, if you don't, I understand that. But please recommend going and seeing it. Even if you see it and you're like, that was depressing, you have to admire the craft, the form, the performances. You might not want to see it again. You might not want to recommend it, you know, but you have to admit that it's objectively a good piece of theater. It's not for everyone. Like, you can't take the little kids, you can't take, you know, the Gen Zers, the people that are super into Be More Chill, or like Heathers probably won't appreciate it, because it takes a lot of the genius of Days of Wine and Roses is more like more obvious than Kimberly Akimbo, for sure, and I think anything to do with alcoholism and addiction will be more powerful, will be more obvious, but the little nuances, the little instrument changes, the little, like, the way that he says, you know, Betty, we spoke, you know, stuff like that. Like, I appreciate that, I love that stuff, but the mainstream people won't even see that. And yeah, so it's not gonna be something that, you know, I'm gonna see it again before it closes. I think I might see it on closing night, honestly. I might. I mean, if it extends, then I guess I'll just see it again before I go, but this warrants a second viewing, in my opinion. But again, even when I was watching, I was like, I don't want to be watching this almost. It's kind of, which is why this kind of shouldn't have ever gone to Broadway, but I am glad that it's here, because it makes the commercial art, and we need musicals like Days of Wine and Roses on Broadway to keep the art of theater alive in New York City, especially with your big brand musicals, your Back to the Futures. And listen, I love Haddington, Ohio and what it stands for, but it's the most generic sounding musical I've ever listened to. So we need to keep this kind of stuff in the stratosphere. But yeah, it's very tough to sit through. And I really have nothing else to say, but you gotta go see it. You gotta go and see it. I know it's a lot, and it's an adult show. It's a very sophisticated. I mean, even if you're a freshman in high school, you might still like it, but you won't appreciate everything or get everything until later. I am just getting some things just now. Like, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it like that, and I'm 20. So, it's definitely a show that, like, you know, appeals to a niche audience, and that a small niche audience, and that niche audience still won't even love all of it, and it'll be the small niche, like people like me that are in love with it. And when I saw it, I got $49 rush tickets at the Today Tix app. I got amazing seats. That's my view of the set. It was amazing. Unfortunately, it was like half empty. Yeah. But it still felt quite full. There was a lot of old people there. There's a lot of old people there. It was like, this is a very old and white crowd. Not that it's a problem. I just was like, wow, I'm one of the few. I'm literally a minority. But yeah, man, the music, the book, the scenes, the motel scene. Oh my god, with Kelly O'Hara. There's a motel scene. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's pretty powerful, and it really gives you into the addiction of it. But yeah, the performances, even from Lila, she acting-wise was amazing. A line that really stuck out to me was like, I'm used to, like, when she's talking to the alcoholic sponsor, the AA sponsor of Joe's, and Joe goes to look for Christian, and he ends up staying with her at the hotel, or the motel, and he's like, can I help you with, like, getting ready for school? And she's like, don't worry, I've done this, I know exactly what to do. And that's heartbreaking, and that's tragic. A very simple line, but it's so effective and so powerful. So again, the sets, the costumes, the costumes are okay. They're basic, but the sets, the lighting, the direction, the score, the book, the performances, 10 out of 10s. It's a beautiful masterpiece of production that I highly recommend you going to see. And listen, this might not win Best Musical, but it's going to get nominated for Best Musical, and guarantee you this is going to win one major award, and if I had to give it to someone, it's going to be Best Score. But anyways, those are my thoughts. Like, subscribe, and comment. Go see Days of Wine and Roses. It's here until April 28th. See you.